Hello, hello, hello. It's been a very long time. I've been away for several months, but I'm hoping that every single week you listen to our wonderful podcast that we did have ready for you and scheduled. But now we are live and we're on the job. Where are we going? We're going to Uganda, and we're going to Uganda twice because it's twice as nice. I call it Uganda Unique. We're here today with Derick Remember, who was really my head honcho, the person who created the itinerary, went with me every step of the way through my incredible, amazing journey through Uganda. And we're doing two shows. One, to give you a general idea of all the magnificent things you can see, things that have been hidden, things you may not know about. And then, of course, we will also do a separate show just on safari. And there are so many ways to safari that I thought really it was so unique, particularly in Uganda, that it deserved a separate show. But I'm going to welcome today the founder and CEO of Ronick Tours and Travel, who really worked with me, as I said, every step of the way to discuss what you can find if you decide to travel to Uganda and why you should. Hi, Derick. How are you today?
Hello, Adrian. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and I know that you've got your offices in Kampala in Uganda and in Fort Portal, both of which we're going to be discussing today. And people can easily find you. I will be giving all of your contact information on our newsletter and on our show notes. So let's step right in. I particularly wanted to let people know that the source of the Nile is in Uganda. That ought to be a quiz question. Where is the source of the Nile? Everybody will say Cairo. Wrong. No, it's Uganda.
It is quite amazing. Uganda is actually the pearl of Africa. Most people don't know that. And I know very many people have visited Africa, but have not visited Uganda. It is an injustice to yourself to visit Africa and you don't reach the source of the mighty river Nile, the home of the strongest falls in the whole world. In Uganda, it is where you find the largest inland water body, and that is the Lake Victoria. It is shared by Kenya and Tanzania, but the biggest part is in Uganda. Uganda, I cannot name it all. Uganda has a lot of beauty that you can never tell in just a few minutes. It needs an eyewitness.
It really does. Source of the Nile is a very strange place because the Nile does not come at its source from a waterfall. It comes from below the water and it bubbles up. And all you do is take a little boat out to the middle of the area where the source begins, and you can get on a small platform. But I believe that the Ugandan government tourist board is building something there that's going to be much more of a tourist attraction. Can you tell us what you hope we will find over there in the next year or two?
Adrian, you were there physically and you saw that very big structure that the government is trying to set up. It's going to be one stop for all tourists when you reach the source of the Nile. It's going to be quite beautiful. For now, when you visit the source of the Nile, like you saw, the Nile doesn't get water, doesn't come from a waterfall, but it is a spring. And where it starts, you are able to tell the difference between the waters, because this other side is the Lake Victoria, and from the other side where the river starts to flow, you see the water flowing, but this other side you see the water still, which shows this is the lake water and this is the river water, and that is where the source is, exactly the point where the water starts flowing upwards to the rest of the countries where the Nile River flows.
Now, of course, the other thing about it is that the birding is fabulous. So just a quick word. I'm a birder. I've got a lot of listeners who are birders. This is one of the most extraordinary places. You're on your boat and you're seeing incredible types. That's exotic. It's really an amazing place. I will also say for my ageless travelers, it's not so easy to walk to the boat, but you can get there. So be prepared to walk some rocky steps and so on. But we got there, no problem. Uganda has a lot of unintended adventures. That's why I call it Uganda Unique. Mm-hmm. And the most adventuresome I felt, believe it or not, it wasn't trekking with the gorillas or even the chimpanzees. It was going to this most beautiful lake. So let's go to that moment in time. It was my last day in Uganda. I wanted to stay longer there. Tell us about this lake and the islands that you can visit by boat when you go.
This lake is called Lake Bunyonyi,
Yes.
and it is the second deepest lake in Africa, next to Lake Tanganyika, which is found in Tanzania. Lake Bunyonyi is very beautiful from the views. It has about 7 islands. Each of the islands have a unique story attached to them, which all you get in details when you visit the lake. And like you saw, there are very many hotels around the lake, some hotels on the island. The view is really, really stunning. This is a place when you visit Uganda that you would not want to miss out. The Lake Bunyonyi was formed by a result of volcanicity very many years ago. We tell you all this history. There are some things that I don't want to sneak into.
Yeah, I'm going to sneak. I'm going to sneak right now. There's something called Punishment Island. Oh, I'm sneaking. You can't stop me, Derick. You know that by now.
Oh,
So,
yes. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about only, Adrian, promise only Punishment Island. Okay.
only Punishment Island. I will tell you that this is typically Ugandan. You've got stories. Who knows what's true? Don't even think about it. Just listen to the stories. They are fascinating. In this case, because a brother usually gets money when a sister marries, they want to keep the sister pure and eligible. But in those days, if she had a child out of wedlock, she wasn't so pure or eligible, and the dowry was really went down. So for punishment to dissuade young girls from having a fling, they put you on an island. But the story doesn't end there. If you were with child, which is why Derick doesn't want to talk about. Okay. So now you're on this little island. Let me tell you, it's about the size of my bathroom. It's a tiny little island with one tree. Not kidding. And on the tree, vultures. Yes, because it's everywhere in Uganda, there's different kind of birds. Okay. So what happens? Guys without the money to pay a dowry, mostly fishermen, boat out to this island and pick a bride. Now, you can't even begin to understand whether or not this really happened, didn't happen, probably happened, almost happened once in a while. But for Ugandans, there's a story to be told. And that's what you find all over Uganda. No matter where you go, somebody's going to tell you a story about something interesting that happened in the past. That is fascinating. But you go over to Punishment Island with your boat. That's one of the things that you see, and it's part of the history.
Adrian, about the stories, you said there are so many stories attached to everything in Uganda, and you cannot tell whether the stories are true or not true. I want to be very honest with you. Most of these stories, actually, I think 95% of these stories are really true. Like the Punishment Island, currently we have one old woman, very old woman, who is the remaining survivor of the people who survived on that Punishment Island, and she can tell the story. So if you visit Uganda and you really have enough time to visit her, we could visit her and you hear her story. So that really tells you that most of these stories should be true.
Well, that's the part of the fascination, because there is a memory. And we'll discuss that when we come back. That's exactly what I want to talk about, which is the structure, memory, the village atmosphere of Uganda, so that people really do have the storytelling or oral history there that may have been lost in other parts of Africa and in certainly many parts of the West. One of the things that I do want to mention too is, as you say, the beauty of the country. It is structured almost as tribal areas. Don't you guys go anywhere. We'll be right back. You may have been reading in our Travel Tuesday newsletters that travel increases your longevity. Over and over again, the research shows why. You make more connections, you thwart loneliness, and you simply have a great time. So why not get started now from your armchair? Simply go to asiastraveler.com and see our invitation that asks you right on the homepage to join our Facebook salon. We call it a salon, not a group, because it's a place to meet people, to connect, to travel together, to share your travel experiences. So simply go to agelesstraveler.com and join our Facebook salon. And now we're back. And as you know, if you've been listening from the beginning, we're here with Derick Remember. He is the founder and CEO of Ronick Tours and Travel. He's also the guy who took me around, together with a really, really fine consultant on ageless tourism, by the way, Johnson Mboa, if I'm saying his name correctly. And he is really one of our great contacts in Africa for ageless tourism, because Uganda is certainly a tourist attraction as a country, but it's very important for you to be able to get around. And that's one of the things that Johnson is doing and campaigning with the tourist board to make that happen. And Derick certainly knew how to make that happen. And I'm giving this as an unabashed plug, because if you are our age, you're going to want a gorilla trek, and you're going to want to go to the chimpanzees, and you're going to do everything that everybody's going to tell you can't do. Well, you can do it. All right, now let's go back with Derick. So explain the fact, which was amazing to me, that just about every person in Uganda knows their own tribe, their tribal history, and how many languages you guys speak. Explain that cultural phenomenon to us.
Uganda is very interesting. It is a country that is rich culturally and has a lot of diversity. In Uganda, we have about over 60 tribes. We have more than 60 tribes. And every Ugandan knows which tribe they belong to. Every Ugandan can speak the language from their tribe, the national language. You find an average Ugandan can speak more than 2 languages, and that is the official language in Uganda, which is English. You find they speak the national language currently, which is Luganda, which is a language in the capital city, and their own tribal language. So every Ugandan knows where they belong, they know to which tribe they belong, and they can speak their language.
And there's a tribal memory in the sense, and a tribal affiliation and a love of the tribe, in the sense that you're going to go back to your village maybe when you retire. You're going to make sure you know everybody there. So is that true of you?
It is very true. Every Ugandan has an attachment to their home village, where they come from, actually to their cultural background. And you find, however successful or however educated or however traveled one is, they always go back to their home village. Or you find someone could be working in a different city or maybe in a different country, but they take time to establish good and beautiful homes in their home village. I think you have witnessed that, Adrian, everywhere we're moving around. And that applies to me too, to answer your question, because I work majorly in Kampala, and our other offices in Fort Portal. But I remember I showed you my village where I come from, and even we got a chance to meet my grandmother. So that is very true.
And it's all part of the trip, this personal way that Derick brings people around, makes it unforgettable. And he actually lived in Cairo for a long time and came back to his country. So there's a draw, there's a pull back to the country. Now, there's another pull, and that is your terrible roads. I've been thinking about this, and it's still worth a lot to take a road trip. Most of the places you want to see in Uganda are under 1 hour away by flight. And it's very easy to go to a small airport. Derick arranges all that, and you can fly from one safari camp to another, whatever you want to do. Or you can take 6-hour road trips. Downside is the roads, the upside is the scenery.
Oh, yes, that is very true according to your observation, because Uganda is a very small country. So if you decide to visit Uganda in a very luxurious way, it is possible. We can fly you from one point to a different point, everywhere the attractions are. But you will be most likely to miss most of the adventure, because I think, Adrian, as you saw through all our trips, there is a lot of adventure that we had not planned that used to come along the way, along the road trip. So it is really important if someone could, we could take road trips. Yes, it is true indeed. We have very, 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 very terrible roads. So you just need to know and prepare for that because the roads are really bumpy, a lot of potholes, most of them are not tarmacked. And you reach a point sometimes when it has rained, you expect to get a little stuck somewhere sometimes, and we'll have to come out of the vehicle and push. But all that makes it a part of adventure, and it is really beautiful. But however, the government and actually in connection with very many organs, including the Uganda Tourism Board, they are trying to do their best to work on most of these roads to better them, the roads leading to most of the tourist attraction sites.
Conclude this little part of what Uganda is about that might be not on the radar of a Western tourist. Everybody seems to be a landowner, whether it's a small patch of land or it's these beautiful, massive tea plantations, or the tea plantations are cut up into small parts, each one owned by someone. So this is a country of land ownership. This is a country of agriculture and people who till their own land for food. My favorite sight was the kids and the adults with walking their goats and walking their longhorn cattle right on the street, right on the roads, and then ending in their own homes with the goats going into the house. And it's a strange sight because you might have what looks like a shack next to what looks like a mansion. Everybody in the village is living together. There doesn't seem to be any envy. And yet people are in very, very different statuses. I've never seen such a mixture. We're used to neighborhoods. This is the rich neighborhood. This is the poor neighborhood. There's even a transition neighborhood in between. You don't have that. I've never seen that anywhere else, even in other countries in Africa. What's going on there? Don't you guys get angry at the guy with the mansion?
Now, first of all, I want to let everybody listening, understand that Uganda has very beautiful people, and the people of Uganda are so loving, they are so kind, they are so receptive. And each and everyone in Uganda, like you were saying, Adrian, when you move around, even when you go to a local market, you'll find smiles all over people's faces. People will be waving at you. And regardless whether you buy from them or not, they are just happy people. So land in Uganda is a great achievement that people of Uganda believe that before you achieve any other thing, you should at least have a plot of land, small or big, but at least you should own land. So Ugandans are very hardworking people. They do work so hard and try in their abilities to buy land. So when someone acquires a piece of land, the next thing they think about is developing it, and developing it in a way like putting up a structure, putting up your own house, and maybe being able to do your gardens where you can get your own food. Like you said, most of the Ugandans make their own food, they cultivate their own food, and the surplus they put to the market for sale. So when you set up a building, of course, you will set up a building in your capacity, depending on your income. You find the rich will have their big chunks of lands and develop them to set up very big mansions, and the poor or the middle income earners, whichever piece of land they manage to acquire, also they will set up a house or a structure which fits their income, and they will feel happy and feel contented and not envying the neighbor who has a mansion, and you'll find they live in harmony and happy with each other.
You know, it's absolutely true, and it's almost jolting to see it, but after a while you get used to it, and actually ends up being wonderful because we ended up seeing some community events where everybody comes. Everybody comes. It's just it's a bonding experience. Now, before we go away from the issue of Uganda, I do want to talk about the music of Uganda. And I had two experiences with you, and they were extremely different. You know, you think about going to Africa and you think about what you learned in school, very tribal African music, which of course has turned into parts of jazz here in the US and other really important genres. But two experiences I had. One was, and I think it's Nderi, I may be saying it wrong, was a wonderful folkloric show that really introduces you to about 12 of the 60 tribes and their dances. But the other one was going to where your office is in Fort Portal and just going to a music club that everybody goes to, that the locals go to. And I thought, oh, I'm going to really hear African music. This would be great. What do I hear? Stand by Your Man, You Are My Sunshine. I mean, I could really have been in Palm Springs. It really didn't make any difference at all. So you've got quite a confusion of musical cultures, and then they melt. Because I was hearing those songs almost in what to my ear was like reggae, but it wasn't reggae. It was the sounds of Uganda. So explain to us all these different musical influences for us culture vultures.
Now, when it comes to music, we have our cultural music, dance, and drama groups. Like where we went at Nderi, the music experience that you had, that was typically cultural. This is one of the most famous cultural group that has established its shows to be 100% cultural. We have many others like this in different regions of the country, but due to the time that we had, we were only able to attend to Nderi.
Right. I will say that Nderi is right outside of Kampala, so it makes it very easy to see.
Yes, because it's also just within the city and not very far from Kampala. And talking about music, we have music artists in Uganda who do different kinds of music styles, and they borrow ideas over the time from different music performers from Africa, from the West, and that's why you said when we went to a local club where we went for a live band, you had different kind of music that you did not expect to find. So most of these artists, some of them are upcoming, some of them are stars. They sing according to style, according to what is trending, according to what they think they are able to sell. Due to technology, now most people can now sell to the entire world.
Yes,
so most of the artists do not only stick to cultural music because they feel they have a bigger audience, they feel they are selling to the whole world. But if you want purely cultural music, we have a taste of it undiluted at all. And you can experience it also in festivals because we have also very many cultural festivals that are handled in different seasons of the year in the country. And here you can find purely cultural music.
And we're going to take one last break because I would be very remiss if we didn't talk about Kampala. Kampala is where I started my Ugandan journey. It's where the Tomb of the Kings are. It's where some of the things that you've heard about that aren't safari related that you might be interested in with regard to Uganda. So if history is what's of interest to you, don't you guys go anywhere. We'll be right back. You know, for many years, I had a radio call-in show, almost about 20 years. I'm very used to hearing your questions and answering them. And if I can't do that, I have a battalion of experts who can. Do you have questions about travel, about volunteering, perhaps just about volunteering, or even your next step in life after retirement? Well, if you have those questions, please ask Adrian. Very simple to do it. Go to fanlist.com/agelesstraveler. That's fanlist.com/agelesstraveler. You'll see it in the show notes. And ask me by text, by voicemail. It's free. We will get back to you. And if we get enough questions, we'll start to live stream and you'll be able to ask me on the air. fanlist.com/agelesstraveler. And we are sadly at our last segment here on our show. But don't worry about it, because next week we are going on safari. And this is the gorilla trekking, the chimpanzee trekking, the actual bush and savanna safaris. We're here today, though, with Derick Remember. He is the CEO and founder of Ronick Tours and Travel. You'll read all about him in our newsletter. Please do go to agelesstraveler.com and subscribe free to our newsletter. You'll get lots of hints and tips about travel all over the world. All right. Now, there's so much to say about Uganda, but some of this is going to come out in articles that I have been asked to write for the North American Travel Writers Association, because more and more there's a spotlight on Uganda as a tourism mecca. One of the places people have heard of is Kampala, but you cannot describe it. Period. The end. This is organized chaos. We walked in the center where the locals go. I've never seen anything like it. Can you describe this? Hundreds and hundreds of vendors with thousands of products, inside, outside, and everything is quiet. Nobody's bothering anybody. They're just doing their transactions. What's this culture is really what it's the people to people culture that fascinates me with this.
Uganda is really, really interesting. It has a lot of fascinating things that you can never exhaust in just an hour or 2 hours talk. And actually, the day, Adrian, you got to go to that market was one of the less busiest days.
I couldn't believe it. I was for my life. I was hopping in front of tuk-tuks and motorcycles and buses and people with things on their head. And he says to me, "Oh, this is a quiet day."
Oh, yes, it is really. It's really congested, and you find thousands and thousands of vendors in one place. And all of them, like I told you, the people of Uganda are very, very tolerant and very harmonious in the way they live. So you find the thousands of people or the 10,000s of the people that you saw, all of them with their products, with their items trying to sell. They live harmoniously and they are happy. After all, they are the neighbors. So you will never find any havoc that maybe they are fighting over customers or anything. They do their best to display what they are selling. They do their best to get the customers to be attracted to whatever they are selling. But if the sale goes to the next person, they really don't mind.
Right. Well, that's absolutely true. And the patience of the people is wonderful to see, just like Brooklyn, New York, very patient people. So, yes, we have no patience here, but you guys really do. I will also say that if you do go to Kampala, you probably won't see this, because this is a wholesale market. This is a B2B market. You'll see plenty of the tourist markets or the fruit markets all over Uganda. But this you have to ask for. And that's why I loved going with Derick, because we said to him, we want to see where the real people go. And we did see where the real people go, and it really was a show. So you have to ask for that. But what you won't have to ask for, what you probably will get to see if you go to Kampala with any tourist group, but certainly with Derick, is the Tomb of the Kings. Now, this is the history. It's interesting because Uganda did not have apartheid. Uganda did not really have the slave trade. Uganda had other problems, and colonialization was one of them, with some benefits, but mostly not. So you get to really see this played out at a fascinating site, and that is the Tomb of the Kings. Tell us a little bit about that before we close out.
The Kasuri tombs that we are talking about, these are the tombs of the Buganda kings. We have very many kingdoms in Uganda. Buganda Kingdom is one of the most famous and dominant kingdoms. The Kasuri tombs is the burial ground for the king of the Buganda Kingdom. And this is where we visited, but all other kingdoms have their own burial grounds. When you visit the culture tombs, you get to know the history of the kingdom. Every kingdom in Uganda has its own history, and it is told in a very special way that will make you understand how, for over the ages, the people of the different kingdoms came living their lives till the current date. When the colonialists came to Uganda, they first collaborated or they first connected with the kings or the leaders of the Uganda kingdom by then. So it has a very rich history which can be told to you.
And just so you know how hands-on your tourism is, our story was told to us in the tomb area while sitting on the floor with 800-year-old fabric adorning the walls by a prince who actually is one of the relatives of the kings. And it was very understandable. And it was so wonderful that we missed some other stuff in Kampala because I wanted to hear the whole story and I wouldn't leave. But that's my problem, not your problem. So there's a lot to see there. Very interesting mosques. Of course, there's a cathedral. There is a museum. But I will also say that this prince is an artist. And to right this moment in my living room is one of his paintings. And he rolls them up on this 800-year fabric. And so it's all unrolled with books all around it. So it'll lay flat and I can make a painting out of it. It's a fascinating country with a lot of culture. And I did feel, I'm going to end here, I did feel that I had to have Derick explain to you and unravel and unroll what it feels like to be there. Because I know that when I look at the tours, people will go to a safari in Kenya and then travel for one day to see the gorillas in Uganda. And that's their Uganda. It's not. There is so much more and so much richness. So, Derick, I hope to revisit. And of course, next week, we're going to hear you again on the safaris. But I'm going to ask you one question to end this. If you could wave a magic wand, right, and have people think about Uganda for tourism in a certain way, what would they think about first when they thought about Uganda?
Well, Karen, you're very right. When people think about traveling to Africa, the first thing they think about is safari. But Uganda, in a unique way, has a diversity. Even if we don't talk about safaris of Uganda, which are also unique in their own way, we have a lot to offer. Comes to culture, comes to religion. When it comes to adventure, there is so much that Uganda has to offer. Being that Uganda is home of over 51% of the world's gorillas, they come to Uganda for gorillas only specifically. But Uganda has so much. So if anyone would think of visiting Uganda, think about the people. Visiting and knowing how the people alone is a very interesting thing. Seeing their communities, seeing how people live in Uganda, it is really, really fascinating. And Adrian, like I told you, you're most welcome anytime. Uganda is home to you now because of all that you visited, of all that you saw, the 15 days that you were here in Uganda. I want to tell you there is so much more that you did not see. So you need to come back again and again.
Well, I have to go back because I want to meet the shaman at the lake. But I also want everybody to know that, which they may not realize, that Uganda is on the equator. And that means the weather is very good. It has its muddy times and it has its rain, but it really is wonderful. And it's a thrill to stand on the equator because it is marked and just realize that you're in a very, very special place.
Almost 365 days of the year, almost all of the days of the year, we have 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. And the weather is really, really interesting.
It really is. It's beautiful. So don't worry about that. Don't associate it with the heat that you can't take, that sort of thing. Okay. So for everybody, please remember that if you go to agelesstraveler.com, you can subscribe free to our newsletter. It's Travel Tuesday. It comes to you every single week. It has lots of information, including news you can use about travel. We have a Facebook salon that you can also join. We're now getting to about 500 people there. It's really important because they share their stories, but they also meet each other to be able to travel together. We are not travel agents. We are people who bring to you the journalistic view of travel for people over the age of 60. We're the number one resource here in the U.S., and our motto is never stop traveling. So remember, this is your show. You have many ways here in the show notes to let me know what you'd like to hear about. And as we always say, never stop traveling.